Welcome. It is February 21st, 2012. I'm Aaron Dykes sitting in on the show while Alex is on the road. Of course, his event coming up in Orlando this coming Sunday. Everyone in that area should really think about checking it out. Coming up on the show tonight, we are joined by Bryce Shanka of the 10th Amendment Center to talk about nullification and some amazing legislation that's taking place at the state level to nullify the NDAA. It's already happened in Virginia, and they're working on it in Washington State and many other locations. Stay tuned for that. Then joining us is Adam Kokesh, who just is on the heels of organizing the Veterans for Ron Paul rally, which was a tremendous success. The media was forced to cover it, and they're now more and more forced to acknowledge the fact that the troops have chosen Ron Paul as their candidate. And that is an important issue on the Ron Paul campaign and for liberty in general as we fight to bring ourselves back to a constitutional government. But first, the news. Monsanto BT GMO corn to be sold at Walmart with no indication it is genetically modified. Of course, the entire biotech industry has fought heavily against any labeling for their products, attempting to keep people in the dark and take what all studies show to be pretty much a Trojan horse designed to prevent you from having children and give you organ failure, sterility, cancers, all kinds of other things, as it combines with all the other terrible things that have been put into our food supply and into our environment. So that's an issue to keep an eye on. Ethan Huff of naturalnews.com covered it, saying that Monsanto first unveiled this new variety of GM sweet corn back in August, which rivals Syngenta, another Bilderberg player's GM sweet corn that has already been on the market in limited form for the past 10 years, claiming it would be available to farmers for planting during fall 2011. Now the corn appears to be set to make its debut in Walmart stores by this summer, the summer of 2012, unless massive public outcry is able to convince the multinational retailer to scrap the corn or at least voluntarily label it. Now, if you think it's a losing battle to try to fight the monster that's Walmart, that's destroyed so many communities and really contributed significantly to driving down wages and to shipping jobs overseas to China and other locales, don't give up yet, because Walmart has been pressured to carry a lot of organic products, and really voting with your dollars does speak volumes in this GM fight, and it's one of the main tools we have. Of course, most of the GM corn, which is over 90%, is on the market in the form of processed food derivatives. High fructose corn syrup is a major component, as are other corn additives like corn oil, corn starch, and other so forth and so on. Additives from corn. Soy is a big one, too, that's completely infiltrated processed food products. It's one of the major reasons you should avoid them, and there's very little way to even tell what's in there because of the deceptive way it's labeled. But it will be a major setback if GM corn is allowed to come to market and if people begin to eat it up without even knowing what they're getting into. Now, here's a Venn diagram that our great researchers have put together of just a few of the people who've infiltrated government, who had a position at Monsanto, whether it's board member or a lawyer or a lobbyist for the firm. There's so many. One name I noticed is not on the list is Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Justice. He was at Monsanto. You've got people like Michael Taylor, who's been in and out of government. Now he's one of the most important people at the FDA. He was a vice president at Monsanto, and before that, a legal representative and a lobbyist for Monsanto. And even Hillary Clinton is on this list. She used to work for the Rose Law Firm, which represented Monsanto, and she was also on the board of Walmart. So you could see the great powers coming together, Monsanto, Walmart, getting together on the GMO issue, how dangerous it could be, and how infiltrated it is. The FDA, the USDA, so many other positions in government. The regulators that are supposed to protect us are actually completely bought and paid for by Monsanto and other biotech companies. And we really need to take a closer look at this and have an honest conversation and stop this before it's too late. We just got to stop this. Now, Paul Watson has written another report. He loves reporting on these Big Brother technologies because it's just being phased in with no one saying no ever. Minority Report style advertising rolled out in London, and this technology will feature $60,000 ads that I guess target individuals at places like bus stations, and will display on screen something that's a cross between an iPad and an Xbox Kinect, playing a 40-second video message when a female's face is scanned, but only a brief message if a man walks past, We're not giving men and boys the choice to see the full ad on this occasion, so they get a glimpse of what it's like to have basic choices taken away, said Mari Staunton, chief executive of Plan UK, the organization featured in the ad. And that spin itself, the point is they're going to phase this in a commercial capacity, hope to reach acceptance as governments covertly use this, and eventually it's going to be all out in the open. They have complete biometrics. In the case of this particular example, the technology supposedly only identifies things like gender or race or ethnicity to try to target ads based on those models. And it's creepy, and let's hope people reject it. Now, you've also got Kurt Nemo's report, scary NSA propaganda, anonymous cyber attack will take down the power grid. However, they point out, after all the scaremongering, that it is not easy to disrupt the power grid in the United States. Most of the systems use proprietary operating systems and applications not readily available for study by your average hacker. That's according to Michael Tange, with a link there to his source. Power grid or drinking water systems and networks are not connected to the public internet. You've heard Alex talk about this before and all the other experts we've had on. And this Michael Tange guy goes on to say, even in places like the United States where there isn't much you can't find online, you're not going to be able to get in depth and detail. You need to turn off the lights with a simple network connection. You're going to have to deploy national level resources. Now, with that in mind, that doesn't mean we're not going to see things shutting down. It just means when you see them shut down, you know who's really behind it. It's the people at the NSA who are trying to ramp up their cybersecurity budget, trying to create a sock puppet. Anonymous is perfect because there's no one name or face behind it. Even WikiLeaks is not as useful as Anonymous could be if manipulated by the very people trying to gain power under the Cybersecurity Act. Now, General Keith Alexander is someone to watch because he was at the past several Bilderberg conferences. They've had this cybersecurity agenda for many years, and it looked like a watershed moment last year in St. Moritz at the Bilderberg Collective because you had so many high-tech people there. In the year that we saw SOPA and PIPA legislation pushed, in the year that we saw the ACTA treaty pushed, and now more fear-mongering that there could be a cyber attack. So keep that in mind. General Keith Alexander, the man who reporters inside Bilderberg said was screaming and cursing that damn Kucinich, because at the time Dennis Kucinich was leading an effective opposition against the Libya war before it really got off the ground. In other news, Urian Mason is one of our best contributors. He knows so much about eugenics, and he's written Eugenics Effective by Incrementalism, and just fleshing out a subpoint about the ancient eugenics movement in a booklet written in 1913 by Alan G. Roper, who really tries to legitimize the modern eugenics movement by citing all the other societies who engaged in killing off people that they didn't want, diseased and affected people. But what does he really mean by eugenics done through incrementalism? Well, he says the biocratic thought is simply this: in order to achieve total control over the body and mind. They want total control over our bodies and minds. By presenting themselves as well-doers, the biocrats raise the perfect guise behind which they can exercise eugenic power in full impunity. But why would they use incrementalism? Who else uses incrementalism? Well, that is the key philosophy of the Fabian socialist, who, if you look back to people like H.G. Wells, people like the Huxley brothers, people like George Bernard Shaw, they were fully in support and some of the key players of that early 20th century eugenics movement. You've heard myself and Alex talk so much about it. It's all in Endgame. But it's important to know that their main tactic is working very slowly. You don't have the sudden despotism of flashy regimes like Hitler. You move step by step until people accept it and don't even remember where they came from or realize where they're going. But besides the obvious goal of trying to depopulate the planet, one thing eugenics is seeking to accomplish incrementally is legitimizing total state power, the power over life and death. They wrote about this, the Caltech researchers who are working for the Rockefeller Foundation to try to affect the total biology, the total life cycle of people. And if they can legitimize that, the state can do anything. If they can decide who lives and who dies, who has the right to breed, they can just absolutely call the shots as they please. And that's why they want to incrementally still us on this eugenics agenda to make the state God. And you also see that it helps them supersede national sovereignty, local and regional authorities, and more. So another great report from Urian Mason. He's the one who brought to light the documents about the Rockefeller Foundation developing over a period of more than 30 years an anti-fertility vaccine and so much more. Now, we have exclusive video right now from Kurt Haskell. You heard him on the Alex Jones Show this week. Rob Dew went up to interview him where he lives outside of Detroit earlier this week or last week. And we're going to play just a few minutes of that exclusive video now. The key witness to the underwear bomber that they're now using to legitimize the TSA's total takeover after he pleaded guilty. So here it is. That's all right. Do I need to backtrack at all, or you think we...
I'm Kurt Haskell. I'm an attorney in Michigan, and I was on the flight with the underwear bomber on Christmas Day 2009.
Passengers describe a terror attack and the arrest of a suspect who tried to blow up a plane as it landed at Metro Airport.
We heard a loud pop, then a bit of a smoke.
Sounded first like a balloon being popped.
All of a sudden, heard some screams, and flight attendants ran up and down the aisles, and
everything's crazy. People are screaming. There's fire on the plane.
So there was a lady shouting back, and she was saying things like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?"
At that moment, I was sure I was going to die.
And when I was at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam on Christmas Day, my wife and I were coming back from a vacation we had in Africa, and this was our connecting flight back to Detroit. And there weren't two seats together to sit at while we were waiting for our flight, so we sat by the gate on the floor playing cards. And when we were playing cards, I looked up, and what caught my eye was a pair of men walking up to the counter. And one looked like a wealthier Indian man to me, and the other looked like a poor African. I thought he was a teenager, but apparently he was a little older then. But he looked like a poor African